Let me ask you a question that might sound extreme, but it's being asked right now by powerful figures inside the Catholic Church. What do you do when you believe the very institution meant to save souls is failing in its mission? Do you obey or do you act? This isn't a theoretical debate. It's a live wire. And just weeks ago, the leader of one of the most controversial traditionalist groups in Catholicism stood up and said the quiet part out loud. The Church is now in a greater state of emergency than it was in 1988, the year his predecessor defied the Pope and consecrated bishops, causing a global schism. And he strongly hinted it might be time to do it again. If that sounds like insider baseball, stick with me, because this story is a window into the deepest, most painful split in modern Catholicism. It's about authority, survival, and a group that believes it's running out of time. On December 13th, in a quiet talk in Germany, Father Davide Pagliarani, the superior general of the priestly fraternity of St. Pius X, what we commonly call the SSPX, made a statement that sent shockwaves through traditionalist circles. He stood next to Bishop Bernard Felly, one of the 4 men consecrated in that defiant 1988 ceremony. And Pagliarani said this: "The question of future bishops' consecrations is the million-dollar question." He didn't give dates. He didn't give names. But he framed the entire issue around one explosive concept: a state of necessity. Let's rewind. In 1988, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, founder of the SSPX, consecrated those 4 bishops against the direct orders of Pope John Paul II. He was immediately excommunicated. Why did he do it? He argued the Church was in a state of such doctrinal crisis and emergency after the Second Vatican Council that he had to secure the survival of the traditional Latin Mass and sacraments for future generations. The SSPX has operated in a canonical gray zone ever since. Now, fast forward to last month. Father Pagliarani looked at the current Church and declared, "This state of necessity is more clearly recognizable today than in 1988. Let that sink in. He's saying the crisis is worse now. And he pointed a direct finger at the legacy of Pope Francis. He said, "After the pontificate of Pope Francis, we find ourselves in an emergency situation. This pontificate exemplifies the state of necessity within the Church from start to finish." His evidence? What he sees as a collapse at the parish level. He claimed that in ordinary parishes today, the means for the salvation of souls are often lacking. The preaching of the truth and the administration of the sacraments are no longer guaranteed. For the SSPX, this isn't about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's a tragic, last resort logic of preservation. They see themselves as saving a flame that's being allowed to flicker out. And Pagliarani was clear. This isn't about the SSPX's internal needs. He insisted, the consecration of bishops is not about an internal problem, but about the good of the Church. But here's the crucial tension. Just days before this, another former SSPX leader, Father Franz Schmidberger, gave an interview. He confirmed discussions were happening, but added a critical caveat. The society will have to discuss this with Rome, because in a normal situation, bishops cannot be consecrated without the Pope's permission. So we have 2 messages from the top, a dire declaration of emergency, and an admission that, ideally, they'd still want to talk to Rome. This is the heart of the standoff. The SSPX's very existence is built on a paradox. They operate outside the Church's legal structures, yet they claim they are its true defenders. They argue they have supplied jurisdiction, meaning, in this state of necessity, the Church's own laws grant them the ability to provide sacraments and govern themselves. Now, think about the practical reality. The SSPX is a global network. What happens if borders close or permissions are revoked? During COVID, this vulnerability became real. That's why, according to sources close to the leadership, the current plan isn't just about replacing aging bishops. It's about a structural survival blueprint. a bishop for each continent. This would ensure the fraternity can withstand any future political or ecclesiastical lockdowns. This story is so much bigger than a single group. It's a raw nerve in the ongoing struggle over what it means to be Catholic today. Is the highest form of loyalty to obey the current leadership, even if you think it's steering the ship toward rocks? Or is it to preserve, at all costs, what you believe is the unchanging faith and practice, even if it means standing against that leadership? For 4 decades, the question of new bishops has been the SSPX's most guarded secret, discussed only in private. The fact it's now being discussed this openly is, in itself, a massive signal. As Father Pagliarani said, preparing for this isn't just about planning a ceremony. It is not only necessary to prepare the ceremony of bishop's consecration, but also hearts. Such decisions must be made through prayer. That language reveals the weight they feel. They remember 1988 not as a triumphant act of defiance, but as a sorrowful last resort, reached with what they believed were heavy hearts and after failed negotiations. So where does this leave us? We're watching a slow-moving, high-stakes drama unfold. The SSPX is framing the present not as a new crisis, but as the escalation of an old, unhealed one. The wounds from 1988 aren't closed. The trust is still shattered. This isn't just about liturgy or Latin. It's a fundamental clash over who gets to define emergency and who gets to act when they believe one exists. The next move is unclear. Will they consecrate? Will Rome intervene? Or are we seeing a strategic pressure tactic? But the underlying question remains for every Catholic, and honestly, for anyone watching how large institutions navigate deep conflict. When you're convinced that the very foundation is crumbling, what is the moral choice? To stay inside and reform, or to build a lifeboat? What do you think? Is the state of necessity argument a legitimate justification for extraordinary action, or is it a path to perpetual schism? Drop your thoughts below. This is one conversation where every perspective matters.